Welcome to another episode of Musty with Satik Sani. Tonight, we have my boy from high school, Alan Fu. He was a fellow teammate of mine, a baller tennis player. We played in high school together for 2 years together while he played for all 4 years of varsity. Alan, welcome to my show, my man.
Thank you so much, Savek. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
Happy to have you. Well, first and foremost, Alan, Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic, two of the GOATs, just played in an unprecedented 56th meeting between them in the French Open final. And Rafael Nadal registered a 6-0, 6-2, 7-5 comprehensive victory to win his 13th French Open title, which just sounds ludicrous to say.
Amazing.
He now has 100 matches won at the Roland Garros, and he has beaten, and his record against Novak and Roger at the French Open is 13-1.
It's incredible.
So now, Alan, I know you're a Novak fan. Tell me a little bit about his form, because Novak's been remarkable this year. Tell me a little bit about his form coming into the match and your expectations going into that final. Because he's been undefeated besides that one default at the U.S. Open. So talk to me about his form and what you thought, what were your expectations before that final?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, like Djokovic going inside the final before, he was in very, very nice form. He played Rome before, and other than the US Open default, nobody really in the ATP Tour was really able to challenge and push him to the limits. He was just super confident with all his shot, the way he played. He had confidence and purpose in every shot he has. And going in, definitely with his confidence level and the way he had the matches, I saw that he was definitely going to be one of the favorites. I know that Nadal was going to be the main favorite as he is, the greatest clay court of all time. He could be considered that. But going in, just by looking at the results of the record this year and Djokovic confident, and Djokovic definitely, I saw he was going to be a big favorite.
So what percentage chance did you give him? Give me a percentage. What percentage chance did you give Novak going to that final after beating Tsitsipas in 5?
Yeah, beating in Tsitsipas in 5, the only thing I was worried about was that before the match, I was worried that he was going to be suffering from an injury. But afterwards, with the Tsitsipas match, you can see that it went to 5. He was fine in terms of endurance in the 5th set. Mm-hmm. So that all comes to, showing that right now in that case that Djokovic was totally fine with the, his elbow, his neck pain, I was worried about before, looked fine. So his fitness against Tsitsipas was no worries. So going into the final, I saw that, because with the roof closing in, I saw that, that will favor Nadal a little bit in terms of, because Nadal likes conditions where it's more warmer. And because they're, due to COVID, Roland Garros is used to be played on more warmer season, but now it's moved to now. But with the colder environment, Nadal's high topspin forehand is, that's give the, a lot of people trouble. Roger Federer trouble, Djokovic trouble. The high topspin forehand to their backhand will jump really high with the, hot weather. But with the, roof closed, I definitely saw that, Nadal was definitely in favor of that situation. And, going in, I expected that Djokovic was around, 48 and Nadal was around 52. So Nadal definitely had the edge in that one a little bit going in.
Dude, I thought Rafa was a slight favorite too, just considering his history and his record with Novak at the French Open. I mean, he is the king of clay, unprecedented, correct? Mm-hmm. One thing that was interesting, one thing that made me really nervous about this year was the balls, the narrative around the balls.
Yeah.
Rafa not really having a lot of match practice, him losing to Diego in similar conditions in Rome. So I think conditions did play a role. And also, I saw the Tennis Channel commentators comment on this. They said the ball was on average bouncing 3 inches less due to the conditions this year. And Novak he's really good at indoor conditions because I don't think he handles the elements as good as Rafa does, the sun, the wind, and whatnot. So I thought, knowing that, I seriously gave him a slight edge to Rafa, and I was very nervous throughout the match. But right from the get-go, 6-0, 6-2, those 2 sets, I think were some of the highest quality tennis I've seen Rafa play on clay. Considering the moment, this final had a lot on the line, and considering his form coming in, and I was just blown away. What do you think about that 6-0 set? It was like 6-0, but it took 45 minutes. I thought the level was very high.
Yeah, definitely. I saw that definitely with the level of that first set is incredible. The score, might look, 6-0 looked like a complete bagel, but the intensity of the match is cannot be described in words just by the score, and like with, the score, definitely like Nadal played amazing in that first game, and Djokovic was having the nerves, missing some of the shots he would use to hit, but he was just having that nerve to settle in, but, nothing taken away where Nadal is just absolutely punishing the ball, finding the opportunities when it matters. And in the first set, I really think that, all these games going to deuce, but Nadal taking those games, is really giving Nadal the edge of, being able to find those key moments in those matches and mentally be strong in those key, tough, tight moments and convert those to his own advantage. So that's my view on the first set.
Dude, that was crazy. I mean, the first game, let's talk about the first game. Novak's up 40-15. Yeah. He's up 40-30. He serves. He's control of a point. He gets a nice forehand. And Rafa just unleashes on this backhand cross-court pass. And I was like, oh, dang. I was like, Rafa's locked and loaded, ready to go. It reminded me a lot of how Novak, as you remember, this beatdown that Novak gave Rafa at the 2019 Australian Open. Yeah. It's like the fortunes were reversed, and Rafa gave him the beatdown in his house this time around. So that's something that stood out to me. And then as far as the conditions go, this was the big narrative. Like, is Rafa, this tournament is an outdoor tournament. This tournament is played during the May warmer months. This time was wet, and I think rained almost every other day. So it gave advantage to Novak, but I always disagreed. Like, even when the blog article I wrote up, I thought, yes, it doesn't help Rafa. I agree, the balls and everything. But I just thought it didn't help Novak as much either.
Yeah.
What? Because Novak also, being a Novak fan, you know this, he likes faster courts, right? Mm-hmm. So for him to hit through these courts, it also takes a lot of energy, and it's harder for him to do so because he can't just buckle back and play a lot of defense, because he's also, I think we're starting to see a little bit of physical decline with him as he's going older.
Yeah, and that's definitely true. Like with Djokovic, even though like that condition with the courts seemed to favor less Nadal because the ball bounces less with the topspin, but it was not really in favor of Djokovic too. Djokovic, hates playing, being a Djokovic. I know that he hates playing in windy conditions. He hates it when, the balls are going in a slow pace. He likes the court fast. Melbourne is a court that, goes relatively faster and then he plays all these courts, hard courts, Wimbledon, that are much more faster courts. So in this condition, though, I didn't really favor Djokovic that much as well. But at the same time, Djokovic with the condition, it didn't help him as much. But at the same time, Nadal was not in favor too. So I feel like both had their pros and cons for both sides. And I think that with the conditions, it was just sort of for them to like find and experiment in a way, not really one having the huge edge advantage using the conditions.
True. But I think since Rafa's chances were negated due to everything going on in his form coming in, I think this was Novak's best chance at taking another French Open title.
For sure.
Just the same way as a Novak fan?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Going to, with Djokovic's record coming in with, such a high record, and with Nadal, not playing as much exhibition beforehand, taking more time to rest and, not playing, not playing his best tennis in Rome, with Djokovic being confident winning that Rome tournament, which is just before the French Open. It's a week before the French Open with the same condition. So usually that sets a very, very good, sort of confidence level, winning that Rome tournament. But, definitely with Djokovic, in terms of the sort of the confidence at the level, he was expected to do a lot better in terms of the conditions.
Dude, and the surprising part, I don't know if you saw this quote, but Goran, Djokovic's coach, he said, he said Djokovic is the huge favorite. Nadal has no chance on this court, which I almost feel like is kind of like gamesmanship. They're trying to get in Nadal's head. Because Djokovic has had kind of Nadal's number in the last, I think, last two Grand Slam matchups, right? Yeah. Australian Open 2019, Wimbledon, and the last time they met at the French Open. Those are the last three Grand Slam meetings. So best of 5, it's been a while since Nadal beat him. Yeah, so for Rafa to win this comprehensively, I think is huge for his mental state, especially to flip this head-to-head against Novak. So besides the cross-court backhand, I want to point out another stat to you, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah.
So on the points played in shots that are 0 to 4 shots in rallies, Rafa beat Novak in 53% or 53 points in those rallies, and Novak won 25, meaning Rafa won more than double the number of points than Novak did for the short point rallies. And then rallies with shots of 5 or greater, it was more neck to neck. And I was just like, that's what Nadal's sustained aggression in the first two sets, and I think most of the third set, besides a couple of blips there, was just so impressive. He was redlining. He was getting everything back by Novak. It was just so impressive to watch. Does that stat not stand out to you? The quick strike tennis, serve plus one kind of deal.
Yeah, that type of tennis really just stood out to me because, both Djokovic and Nadal, seem to be a lot of, very, very good, counterpunchers and like grinders. And I feel like with Djokovic, his conditions going into the match, his physical body is, doing very well. His endurance wise, in terms of endurance, his fitness, his, plant-based diet, everything is going very well for him. But I was also, like Nadal going in, he hasn't played as much match going in this season with COVID. So I suspected maybe that might have a play on endurance, and which sort of caused him to sort of take advantage of, the short points rally, really getting to Djokovic's head and getting that, aggressiveness into Djokovic, hey, I'm going to take control of my forehand. I'm going to dictate the points. You're not going to be able to lead, because Nadal knows that once he gets to a big rally with Djokovic, Nadal can definitely hang with him. We know Nadal is one of the biggest grinder too, but we know that Nadal knows that beating Djokovic is not by trying to use his own method of playing the same style of Djokovic and out-grinding him. He knows that he has to do something different, and he did it today. He did it perfectly in the French Open. He had a plan and purpose.
Dude, I like that. And that's the thing with these big three battles. It's always about whose plan can overpower the other. It's not about like who plays well. I think both will play a good amount, and they can all play well, like winning their B game. But it's about whose plan could they overcome the other. But interesting thing about that is I think the grinding mentality, if this was 2012, that would be the type of French Open we could expect. Sitting back from the huge court, ripping huge shots. But they're both older, dude. I don't know if you noticed, Novak Djokovic is also experiencing a little bit of a physical decline.
Yeah.
He's a year younger than Rafa, but he was employing a lot of drop shots, looking to playing very close to the baseline, looking to end points a lot quicker. So I think this will be the really interesting matchup battle in a lot of their future encounters to come. Who can really do the sustained aggression, and whoever can usually would end up winning that battle.
Yeah. That's very well said. Just like, even the greatest players like, as Djokovic, or, before his game was all in the, baseline, with a lot of, he did some drop shots just to, sometimes, give the opponent some, mix up the shots. But this tournament, it was analyzed to see that Djokovic hit the most amount of drop shots out of anyone. He was really using that drop shot play, and then the 1-2 lob combo on the opponents and really mixing that up, both the forehand and the backhand. And there was a stat showing that about 50%, about 54%, that when Djokovic hits inside that box zone, where it's inside that service box and halfway between the service box and the net, he has a very good chance of winning that shot. So definitely Djokovic, even though those are Nadal or those are the best grinder in the world, but with physical aging, you can see that they really have to change something about their game. They're mixing different things. Nadal before was aggressive, but the way he played now, even more aggressive in the way he plays. So I feel like with their aging, they had to do something different about it. And Djokovic was sort of trying to mix up with the drop shots. And Nadal was going out of his counter level, taking more, aggressions in his forehand, dictating the points, and just using that to sort of make up for the age gap, age sort of
decline. Yeah. So Rafa's forehand down the line was firing. That's always going to be a key shot. But dude, his backhand, I don't think it's ever looked this good.
Yeah, exactly.
His cross-court backhand was so aggressive. I was just like, wow.
Yeah, it's so amazing. It's the way I was watching the match. Most people think that Nadal has one of the best forehand, which is true. But we never really saw about looking at Nadal's backhand. But the way he was playing the Roland Garros, his backhand was just punishing the court. He was ripping the backhands. It was full of confidence. Every shot in the backhand, it was very, very angled and very deep. And pushed it really, really hard and made it really hard for Djokovic to return. And
dude, so I think the Carlos Moya edition has got the sustained level of aggression ever since he came onto his camp in 2017, which is great for Rafa, especially as he was aging. And I think another good thing that I noticed about Novak Djokovic's drop shot was it's been a great tactic throughout the tournament.
Yeah.
Great tactic. He's won the point outright many times. He's often used it many times just to disrupt rhythm. But no, Rafa's court position this final, and Rafa, once he gets the drop shot, is probably 10 times better than like
Oh,
Tsitsipas or
mm,
Pablo Carreño Busta or Kachanov
for sure.
once he gets there. So do you see a lot of those points? One crazy stat is that Novak drop shot at 18 times in the first two sets,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he still won a high percentage of them, 11 of the points, but he lost only seven. So even then, it was a relatively good tactic, even though you got destroyed 6-0, 6-2. In the third set, he drop shot at 8 times and lost all of those points.
Yeah.
I was
It's
like, wow, interesting. So I
that's
think
yeah.
Rafa was ready for that tactical change by Novak, but a lot of drop shots because of his court position.
Yeah, and like it's just like you say, like Djokovic working the drop shots with Tsitsipas, with the other players, the young gents, that's working. But the coverage that Nadal has is unbelievable. Like we're dealing with Nadal. Like if you're dropping, just a normal ATP top 50, it's a different story. But you're dropping Nadal, and Nadal knows his game plan very well. Like he knows
Mhm.
where you're dropping shot a lot and you're not being predictable, and he knows he has his court coverage is just absolutely phenomenal. Like the way he covers the court. Like I was looking at like a sort of like a paper, and they're talking about Nadal's coverage of the court and the way he covered and the milliseconds that took him to cover each distance, which is
Yeah,
just unbelievable. Like coverage,
he looks very fresh out there.
very good. Yeah,
Alan, another interesting thing. I'm going back to the conditions part. It felt like those conditions favored Novak more,
yeah,
but something that came out of the match was Novak has a better serve than Rafa. Would you
yeah.
agree? Yes.
Yeah. No, yeah. Djokovic has just a little bit more better serve than Nadal. Yeah,
Better first and second serve. He can hit. That's something he's really improved on. And this is where I think the slower conditions helped Rafa on the
yeah,
return. Because Rafa's return, Novak is the greatest returner, I think, on all surfaces besides clay, and then Rafa's the best returner on clay.
yeah.
So Rafa already being amazing on clay, I think the slower conditions helped negate Novak's serve
Yeah.
more. So let me tell you the stat, dude. On the first serve return, Nadal put 61 out of 65 of Novak's first serves back into play. That is 95%.
Incredible.
Isn't that crazy? So what were some things about the serve and return played with the court conditions in your opinion?
Yeah, in my opinion, is that in terms of faster courts, it will favor more Djokovic, but with the slow court, it was a bit of a trouble for Djokovic because Nadal, his return game is based on standing a lot back in the baseline. So what his goal is to, take the time off the ball because when you have a fast ball coming at you, he wants to take the time off. He wants to let the ball bounce. He gets more reaction time to the ball and cover back. But for hard courts, Nadal hitting those shots back, he has to worry about covering the court a lot more because the courts come back to him faster. But in here, even though Djokovic has just a little bit more greater serve in terms of the speed and percentage than Nadal, just a little bit better serve than Nadal. With the conditions that was much slower, Nadal can just punt his return very, very good deep back, and Djokovic cannot put the 1-2 punch away because with the slow condition, he's not able to dictate and just close Nadal on the second point. And that lets Nadal in, and that's sort of playing into Nadal's style of letting Nadal dictate his forehand into play. And I think that, that really became a huge factor is Nadal's return game. And his serve was absolutely phenomenal too. And dropping only his break point and his dropping serve ratio is just awesome. Just like the way he's doing.
Dude, Rafa's return strategy has always been talked about a lot because he stands so far back. He's always giving up a lot of court, but he just hits those higher percentage deep balls, which are hard to step into. His court position is like a tactic there, and it worked amazingly on clay. You're right because on hard courts he has actually made it work too against Medvedev in the final. Sometimes when he's ready to run, but on clay especially, and then Novak didn't kind of have his first serve for the first couple of sets. I agree, but even when he did, dude, Rafa was still winning a majority of those points. That's why I felt like the conditions forced Novak. He was in a zone where he felt like he had to hit 10% more for his shots.
Yeah.
He had to flat them out even more because he had to hit like 6 winners in one point to win a point. Like it was like crazy.
Yeah.
Offense to defense, defense to offense was just, it looked like prime Nadal out there. Honestly, I was like, what the heck? I was very surprised.
Yeah, like we thought the previous prime was Nadal. Like now we really see the prime Nadal. It was literally looked like he was just the gladiator out there, and it's just like definitely like with the like with Nadal, his with the condition and the way like Nadal was handling the serve was just perfect, and like the way like even though Djokovic was doing a lot better later on with the serving, Nadal was still handling the serve with a lot of confidence and just really putting the points with, such a high percentage. And that really huge factor with him.
All right, Alan. Rafael Nadal wins his 13th French Open, but also just tied Roger Federer for the most Grand Slams on the men's sides with 20 apiece. Talk to me about the GOAT race. Talk to me about the GOAT race. What are your GOAT power rankings for the three and why? Who's number one?
Yeah. So currently I was still, with Nadal winning like the French, tying Federer at 20 is just amazing, But currently I still think that, going through the greatest of all time, I still think that Fed stands in the ranking in terms of the way he has, gone through over the years and the way he just, his confidence, the way he played, the way he was able to adapt, his comeback coming down, changing his game style. I think that Federer still stands firm in the rankings of the greatest of all times, but definitely looking at the potential wise, Nadal is definitely catching up, pretty quickly. And Djokovic, they're debating that Djokovic could be the GOAT, in terms of, he is a lot more younger than, Federer, but he's about a similar age to Nadal, but they were expecting Djokovic to be more in the coming years to be able to surpass both, Nadal and, Federer. But the way Nadal play, just really marked that, hey, Nadal really marked that message too, going in to the match, all these tennis commentators, they were saying, even Ivan, like Djokovic coach, he was saying, looking at this, stats, Djokovic is going to rip Nadal. He won the last French Open meeting. He has a perfect record. Nadal just does not stand a chance. He has a good record in French, but look at the stats here. Tennis about the stats. But the thing is, Nadal just really proved that, exclamation mark, that he's still in there tough. He's proving himself that he's still in the race for being the greatest of all time and just really proving himself out there. So the race is tough, between the three. I would say that those three is definitely very hard to pick on one greatest of all time. But I definitely think that, Federer right now is still maintaining very good ground. Exactly. But Djokovic now has very good potential to surpass.
So who's number two? Rafa?
Rafa, yeah, I feel like Rafa right now will be number two. Not just exactly. Not just with not just with just like being able to have 20 Grand Slam, more Grand Slam than Djokovic. It's more that he's able to score those and consistently without each of the Grand Slams, the way he playing, the consistent, like a lot of players, there was like a nice, funny tennis video on YouTube. They were asking all the good ATP tennis players saying, who's the hardest player you ever faced? And all these players, Tsitsipas was like, oh, Rafa. And then like the other person, Dimitri, was like, oh, Rafa. But they never said Djokovic. And that makes me wonder, so if Djokovic has a 29-27 record against Nadal currently, why does everybody, like a lot of people say Nadal? And I feel like that just really shows Nadal's, his game, his purpose, every shot is just out there. He is a gladiator, man.
That's true. So I did watch that video. Some people did say Djokovic too, though, because Djokovic and Nadal tied for like getting the most votes for the hardest to place. Yeah. I think actually I disagree with you because I think Nadal has actually overtaken Roger slightly. And this is why, because he tied him at 20 apiece. He has more master titles and better head-to-head, and he has as many year-ending number one finishes. Yeah. So I think the only thing he's lacking in is the World Tour Finals and the weeks at number one. And I think Rafa, the way he's playing, I think Rafa and Novak will both pass Roger Federer, and Roger Federer will be number 3 in the GOAT list. Yeah. Because his weeks at number one record will be broken by Novak, and I think they're both surpass him in terms of Grand Slams. Yeah. So that's why I think the argument for Roger Federer will get harder and harder to make. And don't get me wrong. I mean, a lot of respect for Roger, what he did at his age to reinvent all his style and still be around at 39 years of age is no small task. He's one of the greatest to do it, but I think he will be third when it's all said and done with Rafa and Novak.
Yeah, I totally see your point, with, Djokovic and Nadal, with their masters and all these weeks, all these different factors going in. And it does look like that Federer is going to be looking at third going into the GOAT race. But, definitely like with Federer, I feel like being the greatest of all time, it's good to look at all these factors with slams and things, but I think that it's just the way, like maybe you present yourself to, the ATP and the way you set your role model wise, I think Federer throughout the years, it definitely there's times when Federer has, been like setting really, really good role models in different, scenarios, the way he holds a lot of like charities too, and the way he plays his game. And also along with, his court addicts, his court attitude, his, just his nice mental, just nice, calm state. I think that really provided a lot of like inspiration for the young gen. Like I think
Yeah.
the young gen were looking up to Federer, and I think Federer sort of depicted, this, tennis game to the young gen, saying, it sort of inspired them to play tennis. So, but in terms of definitely looking at the tactics, like looking at the scores and like looking at the matches and looking at all the factors such as slams and masters, I definitely think that Nadal and Djokovic will overtake Federer, as Federer's capability with age will definitely, it'll be hard to do, but I definitely think that, with being the GOAT, there's many factors that's considered. I feel like there's a more part of tennis, the way you bring to tennis, the way you represent yourself. I think tennis is more than just a game of scores. I feel like it might be more than that. But that's
so you're saying Roger Federer's like off-court stuff, his persona, his brand, his charm, everything about the guy and what he did for tennis will still help. But with that, I agree with you. Roger Federer has done, like, he's kind of like the Michael Jordan of tennis, where he changed the way the game was played in a way. First all-court player, beautiful to watch. He brought people who weren't really tennis fans to the sport. So do you think that's enough for him to be the GOAT, though? Even if Novak and Rafa surpass him, would you still put, let's say Novak and Rafa have 22 Grand Slams each, and Roger still has 20, would you still put Roger above them? Taking everything into account. On court, stats, off the court, his brand, everything.
With everything count, I still think that, Nadal and Djokovic would still surpass Federer in the votes ranking. But definitely with all these factors put in place, I think that with greatest of all time, it'll be nice to not just have one, but be able to have, a greatest of all time for different categories and different, sort of different characteristics. And I feel like Federer, definitely has been a big, representation of the tennis game. But just by looking at that is not enough, because score stats is also very matter, and just like the results we're talking about is crucial. So I definitely think that in the long run, in the big answer, no, Federer will, most likely not be the greatest of all time, considered the Masters and different, titles, the weekend number one, and all the different stats. But in terms of as a package, as a whole package, as a whole package, I still think that he delivers a very strong punch, like a big strike to the tennis game.
Okay, I hear you, Alan. So do you think Roger Federer, he was out this year injured? I think his injury was well timed due to the pandemic. He didn't have to come play. Do you think Roger Federer will win another slam? And if so, where?
I think that everything in Roger's game, it really goes down to his mental part too. I think down in 2011, the year that Djokovic was dominating, that year, Federer just seemed like the way he was mentally, he saw that Djokovic and Nadal was overtaking him, and the way he approached his matches, he was playing them not to lose, but he didn't play them to win the matches. And there's a difference. You're trying to play a tennis match with the objective and goal to not to lose versus playing a tennis match and to win the match. And I think that mentality sort of affected Federer. Like he sort of questioned maybe his self, because he's aging up. He's questioned his abilities, and sort of his doubts sort of, I feel like, might play a part in that. But you see, afterwards, he was able to, throughout the years, after many years, after that, time of Federer not winning a single slam for a while, was in the 2011 period, he was able to come back, win some slam back. So I definitely think that, Federer could possibly win one more slam. Like, I think that it's not going to be too much, but one or two. But I definitely think that Federer can possibly win.
Where?
I think that if it does win, it will be probably a faster surface that suits him. So more like a Wimbledon or a quick surface like Australian Open or like US Open maybe. But definitely like his chances in Roland Garros is down to, I think, almost zero.
Yeah, so Wimbledon, I think last year really hurt him. I don't think Roger will win another slam. Hopefully, I would love to see him come back to his form. And maybe he's been counted out so many times. So who knows? You can never count him out. And he had an amazing comeback. But 39, man, that's old. I mean, even for Roger, he's breaking the barrier, but he is the barrier at this age. Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe I think it will take a lot of things to align. Maybe Novak and Rafa being out and not having to face them and getting a good draw. I think that factors a lot more for Roger. But we'll see what happens. So let's talking about the other two. Novak is 3 Grand Slams behind. Is Australian Open 2021 a must win for Novak?
Oh yeah, I definitely think that Australian Open is definitely a key spot for him. He has won Australian Open more than Federer and Nadal. Like Australian Open is one of his surface that is his advantage. Like he loves the condition there. He loves Melbourne. He loves everything about that condition surface, and just everything inside that is in Djokovic's favor. Like it's a surface where if Djokovic wants to really take the initiative and close on the gap, Australian Open is like a must, because tennis in reality, it's not saying a must in terms of, oh, if you don't win this slam, Australian Open, you're not going to win other slam. It's more like if Djokovic wins that Australian Open, his confidence will build for other slam because Australian Open is something that he felt comfortable about throughout the years. So being able to maintain that slam at Australian Open gives him more of the doors and confidence to approach other Grand Slam. But if that door is closed, I think that really might create a hard thing for Djokovic.
Because, dude, Alan, I mean, you can agree with me on this, but like winning a Grand Slam is very tough.
Yeah.
And a lot of players, like when you feel like, oh, Rafa was on a run, Roger was on a run, Novak was on a run, still winning each Grand Slam is very tough. I mean, Novak went undefeated this year, but only has one Grand Slam to show for it, which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
He has one major loss. So I think absolutely he has to win Australian Open because right after the Australian Open, we've got the French Open again, and Rafa's the favorite again, and that could another potential battle if he's not coming in without the Australian Open. I think that the gap of 3 could be very large with Rafa.
Yeah. I definitely think that if Nadal somehow gains the confidence to take Australian Open, then with Djokovic losing, if Djokovic lose the Australian Open, then that would be a huge confidence, and Nadal gap will be just further up. So I think that it's a very important factor. It's a benefactor for Djokovic to really take that Australian Open because this is the big initiative, the big opening, the gates to closing the gap between the slams, catching up with the gaps.
Dude, next year will be crazy time for tennis. Consider hopefully COVID is relatively under control and we have a normal schedule because we miss tennis. But I think next year will be a huge. So give me your predictions of who's going to win the Australian Open, French Open, Wimbledon, US Open, real quick. Tell me Australian Open.
With Australian Open, I think that if Djokovic was, physically healthy and mentally fit, I think that Djokovic does have a very good chance. So I think Djokovic will take that, but we can never count the new gens in with Thiem, Medvedev, and all these new guys coming in, Jannik Sinner. Those are players that Djokovic and Nadal and Federer should be able to beat, but we never know. We can never count them out because there's so many factors that goes on. It's all these factors like Djokovic being defaulted, like all these things are out of their control. So a lot of factors can play a part, but playing well, I do think that Djokovic has a good chance of making to the finals of Australian Open, or if not winning that title. And I think that if Djokovic wins that one, I think that sets a good confidence for French Open coming up, or Wimbledon or US Open. But I do think that Nadal, in terms of I think Nadal has a very good chance of still taking the Wimbledon and US Open in the race. If Nadal's feeling healthy and he's still playing at the level he's playing at the French Open, despite this is the factor considering that if Nadal is playing the level he's playing right now and be able to maintain that level at all times, because Nadal does have some matches where he loses to Diego Schwartzman and some matches where, because of conditions or due to factors where he's not able to produce his best tennis. But given Nadal at his level right now, if he can maintain that, I do think that will be a hard bidding for Djokovic to take the rest of the slam. I think Nadal will be a big threat to him, and I think that Thiem is also a big threat coming up for them.
I agree. For Australian Open, I think one of the next gen guys will take it. I think it will be Thiem or Medvedev next year. French Open will be Rafa. Wimbledon will be Novak Djokovic. Will win Wimbledon, and then US Open will be Rafa again. That's what I think will happen. Those are my predictions for next year. So I think for Novak, because the gap is actually widening quite a bit, especially because 3 slams is still a lot. So while Novak is aging, I think the window for Novak and Rafa is the next 2 years. They got to really hone down on a lot of their slams. So I think Novak has to win 2 slams for the next 2 years at least to have a chance at overtaking Roger and Rafa, especially with Rafa playing the French. I think he's a favorite there for at least 2 years, and then I don't know where Thiem will stand. But then in a couple of US Opens here too, and you can't count him out of Australian Open. Wimbledon be the only place where he might. So that's what I think will happen. So next year will be a great year of tennis. So do you think anyone has a chance at, I think Wimbledon's always won by Roger, Rafa, or Novak. But what about the US Open? Do you think the next gen could take a major next year? Or where do you think their performance stands? Thiem, Medvedev, Zverev, especially.
I think that, without if Djokovic and Nadal and Federer are playing their A game, I don't think that at this level right now, the next gen, even with Thiem, Thiem is not considered next gen anymore. With next gen Yannick Sinner, with Karen Khachanov, like all these new players that are coming up, they're the top of the game. I don't think that if Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer are playing at their top of the game right now, the young gens are not able to still pose a big threat in a 3 out of 5 match scenario. They might win in small tournaments, but with 3 out of 5 sets, if Djokovic and Nadal, that's the factor. Given that they're healthy and they're playing decent, one of their good levels, I don't think that the young gens right now could really place a big threat to them yet. As you can see, like a lot of them has to do with mentally. With Medvedev has done so well in the U.S. Open, but he has never won a single match in the French Open, and that's just amazed me because he has such a good game and his game suits for clay.
Yeah,
the way
it's
he plays on the court, but he just never won a single match, and I think that all comes down to mental. I think the way he pursues that game, I think it all comes down to mental. So, in my opinion, I don't think that the youngest, if Djokovic and Nadal and Federer are playing at their level, feeling fit, I don't think that they can make a threat to them, but I don't think that they can, surpass them in the major right now, like in terms of, winning that major out of their hands right now within the next, 1 or 2 years right now. But I do think that there's a good chance for, the new gen Zverev, to come up, or, Zverev, Thiem, Medvedev,
But Alan, what about something to consider? Tsitsipas gave Djokovic a run for his money. Thiem gave Djokovic a run for his money's Australian Open. Medvedev gave Nadal a run for their money. I think they're closer to here, especially Thiem winning a Grand Slam. I think will give the other next gen a lot of confidence. So I think next year could be interesting. But I think that might be the last year where they really have a stranglehold on slams. I wouldn't be surprised if the next 8 slams didn't just have Novak and Rafa splitting them at 4 each.
Yeah.
I could see Medvedev, maybe Zverev if he figures the stuff out. Tsitsipas. I mean, Tsitsipas took Novak to 5. I think they're close. They're closer, and eventually they will surpass them in terms of physicality, especially.
Yeah, I do think that with their bodies, just degenerating and even though it's a hard word, deteriorating, but it's something that we have to face, and I feel like definitely with Tsitsipas posting that much threat, Thiem giving Djokovic that much threat, and Medvedev giving Nadal so much threat. I think that it's coming close. They're going to post a lot of threat soon, but the question is the time, and I do think that if Djokovic want to maintain his, the gap between him and Nadal, he needs to really grind down this year. Those 2 years are the crucial years for him because I know that it might be possible that the young just surpass them, maybe within the next year or so. But I know that within the next 2 or 3 years, the young gen will definitely be taking half or if not more of the Grand Slam trophies. So you will see that more of the names on the title would not always be Nadal, Djokovic anymore, consistently up 2 years.
I agree. Alan, all right, dude, my last question for the evening for you. Give me the number of Grand Slams each player ends up with.
Yeah.
How many do you think Rafa will have when he retires? How many do you think Novak will have? How many do you think Roger will have? Give me quick answers for each number.
Yeah, so going through, looking at Federer, I think that looking at his, physical body and looking at the way he's playing, I think that it will be hard for him to come up with next slam, even though I tried to believe in him. But I definitely think that, with the conditions Federer is in right now, he's probably just only get 20 Grand Slam. But with Nadal, I definitely think that Nadal is very capable of getting 2 or 3 more Grand Slam. So I definitely think that's the time.
You're putting Nadal at 23?
23, yeah. I put Nadal at 23. And then I do think that Djokovic will probably end up with 20. So I do think
20.
that, yeah, so I definitely think that, right now with the thing going on, I feel like he might get another 3 more, but I think that's it. I don't think he's going to surpass 20. So my prediction is Federer at 20, Nadal is going to be at 23. So Nadal is probably going to get the most Grand Slam out of all of them. And Djokovic is still going to catch up some, but he's not going to be able to, he's going to reach that plateau and be able to not catch up anymore around 20 Grand Slams.
So you think Nadal will be the GOAT when it's all said and done in terms of
in terms of trophies, in terms of Slam week number 1, I don't think that Nadal will take that. Yeah.
Damn. Okay. So I think Nadal will get to I think Nadal will win 4 more slams. I think he'll get to 24. And I think Djokovic will get to 22. I think he'll win 5 more slams, and then I think Roger will stay at 20. So I think when it's all said and done, I think it'll be Rafa, Novak, and then Roger in terms of Grand Slam wins. So that'll be huge for the GOAT debate. But I'm curious to see how our predictions play out in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But Alan, thank you so much for coming on, dude. It was a pleasure having you. You were awesome. It was a pleasure playing tennis. Alan and I have been playing tennis for a long time now, and we've been rivals for our fandom. So Novak fan, Rafa fan. Looking forward to Rafa Novak matchups in the near future. Thanks again, bro.
Thanks so much, Savik. Always great to see you, and hope everything goes well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.